Welcome to the ID10T podcast number 1081. Oh, let's just jump right into the ID10T community corkboard events at ID10T.com. Like Jay, who writes, so my wife wrote a book. Well, 3. The first 2 of the Hidden Pearl saga are available on Amazon and Google, and the third will be available on August 1st, 2020. These books follow a young protagonist, Zoe. She lives in a space station above a post-apocalyptic Earth, who finds a journal connected to someone in the past. She discovers that the origin of magic wasn't what she expected. The journal sets her upon a quest for magical items that can change the future of Earth. She meets allies and enemies along the way and must figure out whom she can trust. Just search for MP Starkweather. She's been working super hard on these. I would love for other people to enjoy these as much as she enjoyed writing them. Thank you so much for sharing, Jay. I hope people check out your wife's book. Well, 3 books, because they sound fantastic. So congratulations to her on writing. Writing 1 book is hard. Writing 3 books is amazing. I wrote a book like 10 years ago, and I'm like, I don't think I need to write another book. It's a process. It is a real long process. So congratulations, MP Starkweather. This episode is Gavin Rossdale of Bush. So the band Bush is very it anchors me into a very incredible period of my life. I had just kind of started working for MTV. I had just kind of started working for K-Rock in Los Angeles. And when 16 Stone dropped, that album had so many hit songs on it, and I just so associate that album and the guitar riffs on that album with being in the station at K-Rock as however old I was, 20-something. And it just, I don't know, it just anchors me in a really incredible time of my life. And so the album is very special to me, and I'm a fan of the band, and Gavin was such a lovely chap to talk to. He's a lovely chap to talk to, but just a very nice man. And I'm so glad we had this opportunity because Bush has a new album, which is out now. It is out as of the posting of this podcast. Just came out July 17th, 2020. It's called The Kingdom. So go pick it up. And at the very end of the podcast, Gavin plays a Bush song, plays one of the Bush songs from 16 Stone. So it was just a super, super, super fun chat. And even if whether or not you listened, whether or not you scratched up your 16 Stone CD from the CD case, the in-case CD case booklet that was in the front seat of your car that hopefully, now people fiddle with their phones. But in the 90s, in the 1900s, we used to almost get into car accidents by grabbing the CD case that would fly off the seat onto the floor. That was a thing you weren't supposed to do in the 1900s to prevent, so you wouldn't get in a car accident. But anyway, very enjoyable podcast, number 1081, with Mr. Gavin Rossdale. Roll the thing!
Initiating ID10T protocol.
How are your kids hanging in there?
They're doing great. They've been away with their mum. We started off the quarantine thing together, and then they went away with their mum, and so I began the assignment part of school, which was this is the hidden, this silent beginning, which was like the chaos of 3 boys, 2 older boys, here's your assignments. I'm going to leave the room. Good luck doing those assignments. So that first week was nuts. And all I kept thinking was at my kids' school, they were like, you haven't done any hoarding yet? I was like, no, why? No. So I go there and everyone's leaving with the toilet paper. So I just kept on going shopping and stocking my stuff up all the time with, the freezer up with stuff so that the kids said get food, and we'd sit around every night and I'd be like, this could be the last of the electricity, okay, guys? I don't know what's going to happen. I bought all the candles in town, and You know what I mean? So you said, "Oh, it's gonna happen." So then we did that. Then they brought. I did 1 week of the organized one. You know what I mean? The sort of the online school.
Mm-hmm.
So then I was like patrolling the hallway like a sort of ex-musician teacher, you know, just wandering the hallways, you know, my sort of, you know, just checking in on things. And then I was getting I suffered emotional abuse at the hands of my 11-year-old, who was telling me that my English way of doing long division is not right, even though my answer was right and his wasn't.
You should show. Yeah, if your kid discovers Another Brick in the Wall by Pink Floyd, you're done. But the idea that there's a new math and a new way to solve math problems. I have friends who are educators who have written books to teach parents how to understand like the screwy new math and how it works, because it is entirely different from how we were taught growing up.
Yeah. I think the answer is Google.
Yeah, the answer is Google. But that's the thing I always wonder, like, how would I can't imagine what school would have been like if literally the answer to everything was in my pocket at all times. I just can't. I remember having to check out books and, they weren't available, so I had to wait. So a report was late because I couldn't get the book. I should have tried to check it out sooner. I mean, can you even fathom what it would be like to be a kid with the sum total of human knowledge in your pocket at all time?
Well, I've been thinking further to that. Like, you know, there's a friend of mine who's giving birth in 2 weeks' time. And can you imagine all these kids growing up who just think that wearing a mask is just a normal sort of accoutrement? You know, we used to think like, you know, cool belts were the thing. Now it's like having a cool mask, you know?
Yes. They'll be fat. Yes, the fashion, they'll get fashioned. There'll be, there'll be Gucci masks. There will be, Michael Kors masks, I'm sure.
Yeah, someone gave me very kindly the Virgil Abloh Off-White thing, which is a great brand. A little overpriced. You know, I bought it for my kids. A little overpriced. $600 for a sweatshirt. It's a little overpriced, but fair play. He's like in the world of fashion and doing all that, so I don't mind that. But I did notice the gift, because they left the price was $100 for the mask, and I was like, now that's cynical. That's cashing in on Corona. Come on now, give it away. Give them away. Let everybody wear Off-White masks. I just didn't see the. It must have cost at least $3 to make.
Probably $3,
maybe $4. Maybe they're going crazy. So I'm like, that's a markup. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, I know people who are selling them for almost nothing, who are at home cutting up fabric and making them by hand. Right. Who are making them with their hands, and they're selling them for like $15. So, yeah. I mean, you're paying for brand a little bit. You know what I mean? It's just capitalism. You're just paying for capitalism.
No, absolutely. I just thought there could be one respite. Take one deep breath during the corona. No. Still a chance to get people when they're down. Well, people lose their jobs. But you know what? A 700% markup is all good. It's all good. It's fashion.
When you tour again, is there going to be like at the merch table, like they're going to be masks with the T-shirts and all the? There's going to be like tour masks.
Hell yeah, hazmat suits. I'm going to have entire hazmat suits.
That's a fantastic idea.
Yeah.
Were you supposed to be touring as we speak?
I'm always supposed to be touring.
Yeah,
I'm always supposed to be touring, and so it's a bit ironic because I couldn't obviously whatever, and but it's been had a weird effect on my body. The backs of my shoulders, like the lower of my shoulder blades, are beginning to sort of decompress to a degree. Because I'm so used to travel, so used to moving. So the other side of it is that I'm meant to be on tour, but it's weird for my body to not be traveling, not doing stuff.
Yeah, and I wonder how it'll be because I don't think a switch is going to flip and all of a sudden we're just going to be in high energy mode again. I think it will be gradual, but I do wonder, like all the people who are so used to the momentum of go, and then slamming on the brakes, if it'll take a little while to work back up to that momentum, or maybe do you think you might decide by the end of all this, like, I don't know if I need to tour all the time, maybe just some of the time?
I don't tour. We tour like 4 or 5 months of the year.
Oh, that's not bad.
So it feels like it's a lot. It's a lot. But I'm never away for more than 3 weeks or so. 3 weeks is the limit that I go away for.
Yeah.
But then in the summers, I tend to do a couple of months. just on those tours. But
is it still fun? Do you have a sense of like, this is something we have to do because we're putting out music and it's good to tour, or do you genuinely do it because you like it?
Could you imagine if my answer was like, yeah, I got to tell you, man, it sucks every minute. I got to tell you. Can you imagine?
But there must be people who
just do it for the money.
Obligated.
I do it for the money, the semi-fame, the lukewarm catering, and
I like boiled deviled
limited selection of alcohol. That never changes because my ride hasn't changed since 20 years. So no, I've seen people doing that like that. I've seen people on stage who are effectively kind of phoning it in or something, but that'd be so horrible. I mean, I'm obsessed about it. I love it so much. I couldn't imagine. I mean, that's why my first incarnation of my band kind of disintegrated, withered away. It just sort of, nothing really happened. Nobody left. It just sort of, we looked and all of a sudden there wasn't a bench for us to sit on. Nobody wanted to go away. One guy, guitar player, Nigel, he just missed his first kid he felt growing up, the first sort of 5-6 years of their life. And so then it was put a delay on the touring until get a bit of time at home. Then it's like, is that enough time? So then I did a side project. No. Is that enough time? Oh, do you want to do after this band institute? Do you want to do it now? No. And I was like, so I did a solo record. I mean, singers and bands doing solo records, please don't. Please don't. Don't. No one cares. No one wants it. We'll wait for your band to sort the shit out.
No one wants a solo record?
We don't want it. It's halfway house. Now, I did a solo record, which is exactly... And so I lived through this experience. I speak from the point of the absolute experience of doing it wrong. It wasn't the wrong thing. It was like I wasn't left any choice because they didn't want to tour anymore. So what I should have done then is just got the new version of Bush saying, hey, whoever wants to do it, the bass player wanted to do it for one cycle, one tour. The guitar player didn't. I was like, this is chaos. So I'm still hungry as a kid on one of the Lord of the Flies. I'm still as hungry as that. Tom and Kanks and Castaway, I feel that hunger, and I love it. So there's no way to do it. I mean, there's some people that are trying to get on that slot that you got, that if you don't deliver, I mean, I think the adage of being as good as your last song, last release, last show, it just holds true. Don't you find that? Your last stand-up is like, that's where it's at. That's how good you are.
Well,
I was really good at the Beacon Theatre 4 years ago. I was amazing. I was on fire that night.
But for me, having done both, but it's different for stand-ups because like theaters are fun once the act is in a very presentational mode.
Right.
But I like being in clubs because they're very intimate. You're almost standing in the crowd. I can riff with people. I can work on new material. I can pivot. When you're doing a theater, you can't really talk to people in the audience because people up there can't see the person in the front and they can't. Right. So I don't know. I mean, is the experience for you different in terms of do you like the energy of an intimate room versus a theater versus like an arena? Like, is there too many people? Are there not enough people? Like, or is it all different?
Right. I think that in the balance that I always try and find is no matter whatever the size of the room, and we play from really bigger places to smaller places. Sometimes there's like one-offs, there's like surprise shows. So there's all different sizes. The trick is for me personally as an entertainer, performer, is to just establish intimacy, establish connection with whatever the size of the audience. That's my only sort of MO, is just to not be disconnected from the crowd and to find a way to just to connect with the crowd, and really, you understand that as a performer, you just there's hidden wavelengths, that you can abseil into someone's like psyche in the space. You can get it, or you can completely miss it, and you can't have any connection with them, and that's a disconnected show. Like, for instance, what I don't like is really high stages. Right. High stage is the worst. When people are like down in the pits, but like really down. I try my best, and I've done a few movies. I don't want to boast, but I've done a few movies, so I can.
I know.
I can unroll the thespian side of my life, and just be like, I'm so connected to you, but I can't see you. You're like below my ankles. You're 15 feet below my ankles, but my goodness, are we connected? Slightly.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's weird to look down at
it's
people.
terrible.
Yeah.
So, but that's the gist of it. And the other thing that I love to do is, I'm quite an uninhibited performer. I like that, to be uninhibited and be really free, is to be as energized and committed and looking for connection as if you're playing to 100 people, as if you're playing to 50,000 people.
Absolutely.
And it's so much fun because when you're the smaller venue, you can kind of make people feel a bit awkward to having to be dealing with you. Like, oh my God, this is a lot of performance in a small space. I better I've got to loosen up. My date's going to leave me. You know what I mean? You sort of force people to be involved. That's why, especially when I go in the crowd, I go in the crowd because I like breaking the wall between the stage and the audience, and I like going to the back of the room where people can't believe that you've made the effort. They're up there sort of, texting or something. I don't know what they're doing.
Right.
And they can't, you go up there and they're like in their seats and, the slightly, some people find it hard to get out of their seats quickly. They trip, they knock over popcorn, drinks, beers. And, but there's a real, it's like that, the energy wavelength. It's like me going out in the crowd is just sort of plugging everyone's energy into the wall socket. Everyone's like, and, it's like, it's really good. It's really fun.
You said something that I would love to try to explore a little bit because I'm endlessly fascinated by it. But you said, you're only as good as your last thing, whether it's music or stand-up or whatever. And I feel like there's this constant struggle between, because in any creative pursuit, it can be very difficult to quantify the ultimate question, which a lot of people want to answer, which is, how am I doing? Am I doing well? And when you work in a very linear job, okay, you get to this point and then you get a raise and a promotion and then you get this and then you get a parking space and then you get a watch and then, it's very linear. But what we do is not linear at all. And I feel like we can get into a lot of trouble as performers by picking the wrong things to define whether or not we're doing a good job. We look at a lot of external cues, but I feel like the internal cues are just as important, how we're perceiving what we're doing. And so how to navigate that, because, to what you said, it's true in the music business, you're as good as your last thing. But is another way to look at that but that means that you could still be a second away from another big thing. It's like, it's never really over if you continue the journey. I don't know. Does any of that make sense?
Yeah, of course. I mean, no, it's a precipice and it's a tightrope. I mean, you're continually, for me, I'm always a semitone away from disaster. So I think we're always on that precipice. I mean, life is like that. Driving a car's like that. You're 5 foot from going the other direction, getting killed by another car.
Absolutely. But just in terms of how we define success for ourselves, it's so easy to just look at the external stuff like
cash,
how many people showed up, how much money, how much notoriety, how much blah, blah, blah. But, the internal stuff, like the fact that you are just as passionate playing for 50 people versus 50,000 people is that's good, because if you only had a very narrow way to define how you only
got switched on after 5,000 people. Anyone below 5,000, nuh-uh.
It's a total failure.
You guys are like, you're okay, but
4,999, no thanks. 5,000 is a magic number, 5,000 and up. But there are people that, and I also think it's interesting that your band got to a certain point where they're like, yeah. We get it. We've had success. We've played stadiums. We've done everything. But now there's life stuff. And you never think about the life stuff when you're in your 20s. You just think about playing for stadiums, I would imagine. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose they were more responsible for me. They had kids earlier. I'm lucky, I can bring my kids out on the road. And I don't know, there's a sort of a weird side of me that even though it is hard and challenging to be away from them, I'm with them half the time because of, my divorce. But it's what I do. And I think that when you have kids, I wanted them to join my life, not my life to join them, and so therefore and especially now it's not, the streaming. I mean, we both remember the times when musicians could exist by selling records, and now that's a sort of I don't know, that's a storybook, that's a history class now. Let me sit down, class, gather round. Let me see time. There's ye old record stores, ye oldie Tower Records.
Oh yeah, that doesn't even mean anything anymore. I mean,
if I said to my kids, I mean, fine to the fact that they, all the powers that be, which is in my case Apple, there's nowhere to put a CD. I mean, maybe in the car, and even then, it's sort of like, it's like, here's the vintage box you can put in, but there's nowhere to play a CD.
I do miss the days of going to like Tower Records and then just looking at album covers, like just looking at the covers as part of the experience for whether or not you were going to buy something. Obviously, you'd have bands that you liked, but then you would see a particularly cool or provocative cover or something really artistic. You go, I don't know what this is, but the vibe of this cover is so good, yeah. I'm going to try it. And you might actually like it.
That's what happened with the Pixies for me, Surfer Rosa. That was how that cover worked for me. That's how I discovered the Pixies, because that cover was, I don't know if you remember, the kind of the flamenco dancer girl and the side shot of her. It's iconic. So what I used to do, and I miss a lot, is when I'd get a record of bands I like or my favorite band I was into, the ceremony of getting back, you bring home the vinyl, you look at the artwork, you open it up, and I'd always go straight to their thanks. And I listen to the words, and I look at the thanks, be like, who's hanging out with my band? Who do I wish I was? Let me just see. Does anyone, And, I've never made it onto those thank you. I never knew anyone who was in bands. And then by the time I knew people in bands, people weren't doing it anymore,
Oh, they didn't. So when you started releasing albums, did you not was there no space to do thank yous anymore?
Oh, no, we did. Oh, my God. It was torture. I had to, do everyone I ever met in my life, and then it's like, and I always remember my first girlfriend, who's my first love, Lindsay, and I was with her for 5 years. And I put Miss Thurlow on there because I thought it was cute, and she was really mad at me about it. This is 16 stuff. I was like, how can you be mad about that? But she was mad at me. She was always mad at me.
Especially because you took the care to I put some extra thought into this. This is going to be extra sweet.
Yes.
And it's like, wait, what? But
why did you do that? Oh, it's like, oh boy. And I couldn't change it. Don't worry, it probably won't sell anything anyway. 10-minute albums later.
Oh my God! Well,
10 million times.
I worked at K-Rock from '95 to '98, which was the
that was my time.
Yeah, that was the peak era for K-Rock, directing pop music. I remember walking by Kevin.
Isn't it funny? And that was with MTV, and the juggernaut of that was just defined everything, defined culture.
Crazy. Yeah, I worked for both of them. I did a show on MTV called Singled Out. It was a dating show, and I worked at K-Rock simultaneously. And the influence that both of them had in the 90s on pop culture was mind-blowing because it just everything's changed. But I remember you could hear a song in Kevin Weatherly's office, and then a week later it was in heavy rotation, and that band would be huge. It was such a magical thing to witness because it was very in the movies, you hear a song on the radio and the next thing it's climbing up the charts. I got to see that happen.
Well, he's gone to run Spotify or something, right?
Is he running Spotify now?
He's gone to some huge job with Spotify in North America. Yeah.
But
that's weird. I mean, he's the one that, there are not that many people in your life, there's a few people in my life, integral people, and he is very central to my life, and his support of the band was really special.
Yeah, when Kevin got behind something, he was I loved the guy. He put me on the air. I came on to do an interview, and then he was like, hey, do you want to be a DJ? And I go, sure. And so he put me, but I was on midnight to 5. But those songs on 16 Stone, to me,
Did you have to be there? Were you there from midnight to 5?
I was literally the only person in the entire studio because it was such a weird. They didn't even track ratings from midnight to 5, so there was no call screener. There was no. It was just me in that, on whatever that 9th floor in Burbank, like that building in Burbank, and that was it.
How many days a week was that?
It was 3 or 4 nights a week. But I was like 22, so like I had, wasn't weird staying up all night, but it was an incredible time to be there, to just witness how much music had changed. And when I left in '98, music pivoted away and sort of went more like Limp Bizkit, like rap rock or whatever. But I loved the period of time that I was there, and all those songs are they're so special to me because it was just such a magical time.
Right.
We actually played CDs. You had to pull CDs and like carts and stick them in the thing. Right. So did Kevin discover who was
I just was signed to a label, to Toronto Records in the Valley, and I came from London. People didn't know whether this was a legit label, legit situation, but I was sort of hovering around labels in England. We weren't getting signed. People weren't prepared to take that leap of faith, and I think at that time anyway, it was sort of a lot of the whole Britpop scene was going on, and
right.
Suede with a really big band at the time, Blur, Oasis. So we were like an anomaly anyway. We were like, want to be the Pixies. And so then to do a record deal in a foreign country like they did with 4AD in London, I saw it as a chance to, to be in the same. I thought something was happening to them, to us, what was happening to them. And so we actually had the record, and it went to Hollywood Records. It was our distributor, and this guy, Frank Wells, was killed in a helicopter crash. One of the heads of Disney. And he was very sad, and suddenly we had no one looking after the band. And there was a great quote that someone said about 16 Stone: not only are there no singles on this record, there's no album tracks. So they dropped us. Yeah, they dropped us. And so then I went back to work, and I worked for 3 months back in London. I'd been to America once, but I hadn't been to America then. I just assigned, made a record. And then so for me, I'm so used to failure and so used to struggling that, you make a record and you can have a cooked breakfast every morning with a catering budget. And so you don't have to eat when you go home. And you're making a record. I was like, great. And then when I went back to work, I was like, well, that's life of a musician. It's just like a sort of one-way ticket to nowhere, slowly. And then they called us up, and what happened was my label had got it played at K-Rock. It picked up by Ted Field over at Interscope Records, heard it on K-Rock, and then him and Jimmy Iovine, and so it was Ted Field's project basically, and then that was the end of that. Then K-Rock, that blew up. Then we had the power of Interscope, and then we had MTV was helping us with the videos, and that was the juggernaut. Wasn't that amazing? I often think about MTV, and it's such a shame they don't play music videos. Imagine if they managed, if they played music videos now, people would be watching it all the time.
I don't know I have two answers for you for that. If you want
I think it's amazing. But before you tell me, isn't it the genius concept about MTV that I only realized years later that we all paid for programming that wasn't even guaranteed to get on there. So we'd like either spend between 250,000. It's like so much money. That was a low video in the 90s. So say you only spent $300,000 on a video, which was that was like a taking it easy video, yeah.
Right.
In those terrible numbers, now we do anything for $300,000, and then you'd pay that, and then you'd sit there just. Please play it. Please do our programming. Nowadays, if you spend $200,000 on a program on Netflix, they're going to show it. That's it. Yeah. We'd spend it on a 4-minute clip, and that wouldn't always get played. Terrible. Wow, genius for them. But so go on. What was your theory of?
Well, it's just that. So I believe that there were. If I understand the way that works, number one, first of all, I can tell you that having done a television show on MTV for a long time, music video shows were the lowest rated shows. Because if more people had watched them, then they would have programmed them more. But when it started in the 80s, it was such a revolutionary thing. And even then people said, well, attention spans, like the kids, Gen X, they're fucking idiots. Their attention spans, they're watching these 3-minute clips. But attention spans got shorter and shorter and shorter. So not only did they rate low, but at a certain point, MTV started to realize that they couldn't actually monetize just music video shows. They needed to own IP. So they started creating shows that they could create and license internationally, I imagine. And so it was a combination of those two things. But even in the 90s, people would say like, your fucking show, like MTV used to play music videos. I remember that in the 90s, people say that. And now, I don't know, MTV's probably about 40 years old. So MTV to me feels like a 40-year-old guy like, hey, what are you kids like? Let me see what I can make for you kids now, So it all changed, but you're right. The idea that you would invest $250,000 and cross your fingers. I think, was Everything Zen the first track that K-Rock played?
Yeah. Yes.
I remember it so vividly. That first guitar riff from that song, it just made me feel like, oh, I love this. I'm at work. And, but the fact that you basically had a fucking gold mine, you had a brick of solid gold that at first people were like, there's not even anything on here. And it turned out that literally everything on that album popped.
5 number 1 singles. But that's Hollywood Records, That's Hollywood Records. So sometimes when people, they, I guess Disney began the label, they might not have hired the they might not have got whoever the famous A&R people that we lived with.
Right. And so when it turned, and it sounded like it turned, like once it started to turn, it sounded like it turned pretty quickly. What did the momentum change of that feel like, to go back to London to just work a regular job for 3 months and then all of a sudden like, oh shit, we're a big band.
Well, I worked the regular job, and then I came out through the summer, and then I came out to LA. I played this. What's a club called on Santa Monica? Shoot me! I can't think about it. But the power went out. They weren't used to having bands there. It was like a nightclub. I don't know. Keep them wanting to say the Gaslight, but it's not. But anyway, whatever. I'm sure someone will correct us. But so came out, and then I had the one trip to LA, and that's when it had begun on the radio. They're like, "Your record's been playing on K-Rock," and I didn't know. I was like, "What's K-Rock?" I was in London. So it's only when it came out in November, and then we came on tour in the January or the February. Brought the record out in December. So it was really insane. The momentum, and it just was like being put into an incredible movie of what it might be like. From the first show at CBGB's was a proper first tour date, and before it was the John Bavatta store, and when it was just literally the stinky, pissy club. And I remember not being able to do the sound check, and we couldn't get back in because it was so packed. That's when I was like, I'd never had that. And it was the first time an audience I played to that had heard the songs and knew the songs. I always played and just sort of like, you're going to like this one. Here's another song you've never heard. I played with pubs in Camden. Here's another one you've never heard. Oh, dear. But
you start playing shows where people come in and they're instantly connected already. I mean, like that's a whole other. Yeah,
it was amazing. That was like, and that thing where you start a song, so Zen, da 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 da, and it goes, yeah. You're like, oh my God, we're in a movie. Keep playing. Don't stop.
Do you find that, because those feelings in our life can be, especially when you're young and those things happen for the first time, do you always feel like I got to chase that first feeling, or are you good about like, I'm moving forward. I'm not going to look in the rearview mirror. Like, what's the balance when you've been in a band for a long time?
Oh, I mean, As in, I mean,
because it can be like a drug, right? Like that feeling, that adrenaline, that, that's probably a significant part of why we're all performers, is that that sort of rush,
I do it. I do it. It's sometimes funny when I do. I mean, we do it for the thrill, right? And sometimes if I'm going, I remember being in New York and going to do like Letterman or something, whatever, whichever show, and I'll be at a traffic light, and I've got that sort of adrenaline side. I don't want to screw up on the show. Legendary host, blah blah blah. And I look out on the street and see someone at a crosswalk, completely relaxed face, got lunch, chilling out, it's a nice day. And I go, why I gotta be this guy? Why I gotta be pressure guy? Why I always gotta be pressure? Well, I gotta go to work, go to pressure. Well, look at that guy. He's going to work. He's having a break. He's having a sandwich. He's got no pressure. Everything's good. And then I just realized that I'm a sort of an adrenaline junkie, pressure junkie. And I put myself consistently in situations, as does any performer, where you can go straight into idolatry, or you can be like, whoa, what happened to that guy? You're right. And you cross that line. And I suppose I like it. I love doing movies. I love acting, and nothing is more fun when you go and rolling camera and action. And you just know that the whole set is primed towards you as an actor and whoever you're acting with to deliver in that moment. And do not mess it up. Don't mess your line. Don't be disconnected from the other actors. Be good, be interesting. And it's that moment. Right, here we go. And I guess I like that pressure. Yeah,
but I imagine that what comes from that is the focus, right? It's like when your hackles get up and you feel the adrenaline, there's like a tremendous amount of focus that happens as well, right? But then it's keeping all of the other neurotic stuff out of the way.
Yeah.
When you're touring a new album, how do you know? Because the new album got postponed, obviously, because of COVID, but it's July, right? The new album's coming out in July.
July.
And so does it feel, does writing songs feel the way it's always felt? Do you feel like it's evolved in some way? Or do you have the same struggles with it? Or have you gotten better at some stuff?
I mean, it still has the same thrill. Like when I write a song, to me, the beauty of a great lyric, a great melody that sits on top of some chord sequences that you like. That to me it's so wild because it's 12 notes, but it's an infinite assortment of arrangements for those notes. And you can go from Mozart to Slipknot, and they all use the same notes. They use the same notes.
That's such a great...
And so I find it really magical and really mystical. And so I just love it. I mean, I look back at some of the songs, I've been lucky enough to write. They got stuff to them. They got value. And then there's new stuff that I write on this record where they also have value. I just have an intrinsic sense of when a song is done. I have an intrinsic belief in if a song is any good or not. And so I think my instinct has gotten better, and I hope I sing better. I hope I play better. But it's not to say that when I recorded certain songs, I didn't do them justice. And, it's just so if I'm just a self-made, wandering minstrel with a band, so I have an ancient job, I just happen to be on Zoom with a sort of with a beautiful acoustic guitar here. Just like,
yeah, I don't know. I just don't think there are any, because you said, I don't know if people should do a solo album or whatever. But I just don't think there are any mistakes, because I think every choice that you make leads you to the point you're at now and sets the table for whatever.
I just mean that, for instance, the solo record I made, I was so proud of it. And I got so many songs on there that I prefer, if they had been Bush songs, I'd feel more connected to just drop them into the set sometimes. So it just holds me back a little bit. It shouldn't. It doesn't matter. They're just songs. But, to create a body of work, and I have all Bush, like 10 Bush records now, and then 8 Bush records. This will be my 8th. And then 2 other records. I just wish there's other 2, because there's the same same writer and same person and everything like that. And look, I tried to just on the solo record just minimize on the one solo project I went heavier on the Institute record, detuned heavy sort of heavy metal stuff produced by Paige Hamilton from Helmet. And then on my solo record, I collaborated with loads of people and tried to use less guitars for emphasis. And everyone's like, "Where's the guitars? No, guitars."
Hey, let me try something new. What the fuck? Come on, guys.
Yeah. I mean, so I'm proud of those records. I don't mind having done them like that. I mean, as you say, I do believe in a very Buddhist sense, whilst not being a Buddhist, that it's just we're all on this mad journey we're meant to be on, and the rough times are meant to be there to illuminate the good times or to inform the good times, and bad songs are there to get to the good ones, and this is how it goes. And whilst we're talking about this whole thing of making every show amazing, good, this, that, you can't guarantee that everything's as good. You can't be the same, consistently the same. One night you're going to be funnier on Friday than you were on Sunday.
Absolutely.
I actually, by the way, wish there weren't any gigs on Sundays, because everyone's slightly different, wrong mindset. Everyone's like, it's Sunday.
Yeah, no,
I didn't do my homework.
Yeah,
it's like a 10% less.
Got to go to work tomorrow.
Are we playing on Sunday?
Yeah, you have to go to work the next day. It's not like Sunday shows.
People are just not as free. There's more mellow. It's like, okay, everyone sit down. Let's all sit down. It's Sunday.
Or maybe they're just tired from Friday and Saturday, so Sunday's like wrapping it up for them. It's like
some other band got their whole chutzpah on the Friday and Saturday, and we're screwed. We just got we got the dredges. Thanks for that. I gave you my old socks and a really terrible T-shirt.
So because I think I have you for 10 more minutes, and I think are you going to do a song, or are you going to record it separately?
No, they asked me if I would do a song for you.
It was very tough to. They said, Gavin will play, any Bush song you want. And I go, I don't, there's like, so many of them are so meaningful to me. I mean, everything Zen is so meaningful because it helped define that era that I worked at K-Rock. But then, Machine Head just seemed like, it's such a fun song. I'd love to hear acoustically, but Come Down is also a song that I fucking adore. So I don't know. Is there one that is more particularly meaningful to you that you like? Does anyone ever ask you what you want to play?
No, not really. But I took the opportunity because I thought I hadn't done Machine Head much. So I did a sort of a version.
I love it.
I did a version of it. It's not, I mean, I'm not going to be able to do I've done it where I do acoustic, I do the whole line, that. I was playing yesterday and I was just like, I don't know. Does this sound a bit like, not mindful of the fact there's no one else playing with me. I'm playing on an acoustic. It's like, no, this sounds. So anyway, I worked up a little arrangement of Machine Head. If you're happy with that, I'm more than happy with that. And I've never done it before. So when I did the Machine Head one before, it had a certain style, and then when I played it yesterday, I was like, I wonder if something else. So I've done a different arrangement of it, kind of thing. So we'll see.
Electric light for our love, for our fear, for our rise against the years and years and years. Got a machine head, spin the rest, green to red. Machine head, got a machine head, spin the rest, green to red. My machine, walk for my machine. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in. Deft, I'm 30, starting to deserve this. Leaning on my conscience wall. Blood is like wine, conscious of time. If I had it all again, I'd change it all. Got a machine head, it's better than the rest. Green to red, machine head. Got a machine head, it's better than the rest. Green to red. Walk for my machine. I walk for my machine. That's mine. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe in, breathe in. Got a machine head, it's better than the rest. Green to red, machine head. Got a machine head, it's better than the rest. Green to red, yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. I walk for my machine. I walk for my machine. I walk for my machine. My machine.
Woo! I'm 50,000 people screaming.
I don't
Our
know.
new era of Zoom concerts. 50,000. I thought that sounds fucking. It's so great to. I mean, because the song, I love the song, but it's so fun to hear the chord changes like so clearly.
Right.
It's such a. I mean, I know it's a harder song, but it's like more hardcore, but it's a pretty song when you do it that way.
It's. I wish I was slightly better at playing it really clearly and perfectly, but it's just all meant to be sort of classically, you know.
No, it's beautiful, especially the little breakdown going up the net. It was perfect. So last two questions. Number one, what are you happy about right now? What are you joyful about in this time when it's so easy to be, negative when we're all trapped seeing bad news all the time?
I'm really joyful about having this record for people to fall in love with. That's really it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's such a luxurious feeling to be a creative person with something that you do all lined up, ready to go. So I just know that provides. Usually, a record for me is like 2 years of work. 2 years of stuff that's going to happen for me. So that is really exciting. And ironically, I don't know what's going to happen. So sometimes I get a bit concerned about it, but ultimately, to have 12 new songs for people that love the band to fall in love with, that's a lot to be joyful about.
That's fantastic. And then lastly, for people, who are trying to find their own thing or who are creatively struggling with how they define success, just really quickly, how do you define success, or how would you tell people to healthily define success?
Well, success is I mean, there's a sense of achievement in success, of course, but ultimately success is the same thing as happiness. You know, I think that the biggest, the most challenging thing for all of us to consider is that, is that when we take ourselves out of the moment, it's so easy to get sort of wistful and depressed about the past, or concerned about the future and how it's, you know, how these things you have no control over. And so that depression comes from the future. So it's so difficult staying in the present. So being productive, as on a minimal level as possible, being productive, and feeling that gives a sense of self. It can be as stupid as making your bed. It can be as stupid as building a house, whatever. It's just a sense of self-worth. But it's also a sense of accepting you're in the right position at the right time. And so much depression and sadness comes from projecting into the future and a bad image and a bad picture. So success is absolutely living in the moment. If you can absolutely live in the moment, that's a very successful way to live.
Beautifully said. This was a wonderful conversation. I was such a great, I don't know, I was very excited to talk to you. You know, I'm sure people give you these stories all the time, but your band was very much an integral part of my world and my, you know, like my career development at that time. And so I have very soft, warm, and fuzzy feelings about it. So I really appreciate you, and I thank you so much for taking the time, man. I hope you're doing well, and I hope you stay safe and healthy.
Likewise. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
ID10T scanning complete. Enjoy your burrito.